Hello, I'm Doug White, and welcome to NBC 10 Biographies. In this episode, we will meet two individuals who share some admirable qualities: courage, patriotism, and dedication to duty. Walter Stone started his career battling bank robbers and street thugs. He went on to tackle organized crime in New England. And as a test pilot, Woody Spring flew helicopters. As an astronaut, he accepted one of NASA's most challenging space missions. We begin this edition of NBC 10 Biographies with Walter Stone.
He epitomized all that was good and professional about law enforcement.
The colonel demanded respect. He demanded integrity. He demanded good police work.
He was a great American. He believed in America. He believed in law and order.
He was a lawman, not just a cop. He was a lawman.
Born in 1910, Walter Stone joined the Providence Police Force when he was 21 years old. Tall and rugged, Stone earned a reputation for being tough, fearless, and willing to use deadly force if he felt the situation warranted it. He moved swiftly up the ranks to commander of the Detective Division. An expert marksman who once scored .299 out of a possible .300, Stone made a profound impression on new recruits.
Well, he was a living legend even at that time for we, the young men. He epitomized all that was great about being a Providence policeman, being a successful detective, investigator. People respected him. He was tall, he commanded your attention, and he had a commanding presence. He was charismatic even before we began using the word.
In 1958, Stone was selected to head the Rhode Island State Police. The first major crisis to confront the new superintendent came the following summer. A prison break by 3 hardened criminals from the Adult Correctional Institution threw the residents of the state into a panic. One of the convicts had murdered a schoolteacher. Another had attempted to kill a policeman. Determined to capture the fugitives, Stone organized a massive manhunt. The public held its breath and put its faith in the state's top lawman. Stone delivered. Within days, the escapees were back in custody. The community breathed a collective sigh of relief. As his career evolved, the colonel grew increasingly distrustful of the press, refusing to return phone calls and seldom, if ever, granting interviews. But here, he seems relaxed and confident with the media. Stone received a letter of congratulations from Lieutenant Governor John Notty. His future as head of the force seemed rock solid.
I'm pleased to announce the following appointments.
But when Notty was elected governor, he immediately replaced Stone. The move caught the colonel off guard. He claimed that Notty had promised to keep him as superintendent.
And Major Harry Gill as superintendent of state police.
Notty's controversial decision shocked members of the law enforcement community. Stone had the credentials of a lawman who was untouchable by corruption. Years later, FBI surveillance tapes would reignite the controversy.
I, Walter E. Stone.
I, Walter E. Stone.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
Stone returned to Providence, accepting the job of chief of police. Fate had conspired to rob him of his role as leader of the state's most important law enforcement agency, a prize he felt he had earned. It was a major setback, but Stone would not surrender without a fight. Republican challenger John Chafee made a campaign issue of Notty's decision to replace Stone. True to his word, once elected, Governor Chafee reinstalled Stone as head of the state police. Colonel Walter Stone resumed the duties of his office with little fanfare. However, he replaced the portrait of Governor Notty with that of his hero, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover.
The nation's underworld gets the unwelcome spotlight of publicity as the Senate's Investigations Subcommittee begins new hearings on crime.
In 1963, senators investigating organized crime called Stone to Washington to testify. In characteristic no-nonsense fashion, He exposed the sordid activities of the criminal underworld. And Stone did not hesitate to name his archenemy, New England crime boss Raymond Patriarca.
Colonel Stone knows what he's talking about, and of course we're very proud that he was called upon to go down there. It shows the high regard that he's held nationally by the authorities. He's a man who knows his business, and I think he did an excellent job down there.
Would you say there may be a Cosa Nostra family in Providence?
Well, if you mean is there any organization here, I believe there's organization, yes.
Organized crime. You would always have to organize crime. And of course, here's where it started, right here in Providence. Raymond Patriarca and his gang.
Subpoenaed to testify at the Senate hearings, an angry Patriarca lashed out at his accusers like a cornered animal.
I never was at no meeting, Mr. Dario or whoever else you gentlemen have got in mind. It's nothing but a lot of hookwick that you people have been giving me for a long time.
A grand jury was convened in Providence. Colonel Stone testified, confident he could bring the war against organized crime to his home turf. Patriarca, who ran his operations from his headquarters in Providence, insisted he was just an honest businessman. The grand jury reached a decision. They accepted Patriarca's story. It was a crushing blow for Colonel Stone. His call to arms in the war against organized crime had been ignored. Frustrated prosecutors were certain that a trail of larceny, extortion, and murder led to Patriarca. But the mafia kingpin strolled triumphantly from the halls of justice. Intimidation may have played a role in the jury's astonishing conclusion that organized crime did not exist in Rhode Island. But there was little the authorities could do. One thing was certain. For the moment, Raymond Patriarca would remain a free man. In the years to come, the seeds of public indifference would reap a bitter harvest as gangland warfare erupted in the streets of Providence. Stone fought back, establishing a detective division, cultivating informants, and creating a network of law enforcement agencies dedicated to smashing organized crime. The fight would consume Stone for decades. Loan sharks, bookie joints, and drug peddlers were the first to feel the heat. There would be no refuge. State police used a utility truck to bust a gambling ring, operating from this second-story apartment.
He was a relentless warrior when it came to organized crime. He exposed at that time the Raymond Patriarca crime family.
Organized crime had such a grip on the state of Rhode Island. They had representation in the judiciary, in the legislature. They had corrupted policemen. They had people in all key positions. The last and only place that the organized crime didn't have anybody was with the state police.
The state police earned a reputation as tough crime fighters who could not be bought. A succession of governors would place their faith in Colonel Stone.
Colonel Stone is universally respected as an outstanding police official.
Critics called him ruthless and ambitious, but he worked 7 days a week, went years without vacations, and won the trust of those he served.
No greater honor could be given to any law enforcement officer, any policeman, than be selected as the superintendent of the Rhode Island State Police. And also no greater responsibility could be given to a man than to be the colonel of the Rhode Island State Police.
Years of relentless pursuit would eventually be rewarded. Stone played a crucial role in the downfall of Raymond Patriarca.
Thank you, Sergeant.
In 1975, the Rhode Island State Police celebrated their 50th anniversary. The force had triumphed under Stone's leadership, and he was justifiably proud. But a crisis lay ahead that would threaten Stone's reputation and his career.
NBC 10 Biographies will return in a moment.
New England mob boss Raymond Patriarca died in 1984. His nemesis, Colonel Walter Stone, continued the fight against organized crime. He encouraged his detective division to hunt down corruption, regardless of where the trail of evidence led them.
The colonel was never afraid to go after anybody who he perceived to be a threat to the state of Rhode Island and also the state police. He ran that department with an iron fist.
But critics began to complain that Stone's rigid style of management was out of touch with reality.
Maybe he was marching to a beat of a different drummer, but he was never out of step.
Social protocols were evolving, challenging attitudes once considered to be chivalrous.
He had a fierce admiration for women and children. And if the crime involved them and they were victims, he kicked it up a notch to be sure that we cleared those as quickly as we possibly could.
Stone could be a harsh taskmaster with a sharp tongue and quick temper, but he was generous with his praise for those who were willing to put extra effort into law enforcement.
When you got the call from him and he said, "You did a hell of a job," when he said that to you, those words coming from him, honest to God, it meant something.
For years, Stone had personally lobbied for better pay for his troopers. But in 1971, the first state police labor contract was signed. Collective bargaining became a reality, a difficult development for a leader of Stone's character.
He was not going to negotiate matters that involved the operation of the department. And that's all there was to it.
The later years of Colonel Stone's career were punctuated by controversy. In 1986, he was the target of a lawsuit filed by a trooper who claimed she suffered sexual harassment at the training academy. The judge said the suit was motivated by a continuing labor and management struggle, but the jury found him guilty. Stone's supporters insisted that job performance, not gender, was what counted most with the colonel. But the man who was the target of the accusations stubbornly refused to defend himself publicly.
He said, "You know, I've been following what you've been doing on some of those cases, Maureen. You're doing a goddamn good job." And you'll probably have to X that out, but that's the way he would say. So I don't think he had any problem with women.
As criticism of his administration mounted, Stone found himself thrust into the public arena. Opponents began to clamor for his resignation. Worse, they called into question the integrity of the institution that he had devoted his energies to for decades.
If it was criticism directed at him, it never bothered him. If it was criticism directed at the state police, that was something quite different.
There isn't any scandal as far as I'm concerned. I know there isn't a scandal. The only ones that's making a scandal is the malcontents and you folks.
In 1989, Stone announced he would retire. He did so, he said, without regrets. In his final years, a close circle of friends watched with concern as a man who never smoked or drank battled his final enemy, cancer.
He'd always like to stop and get a bite to eat. And I would have to find a restaurant that was out of the way where nobody knew us, so that he would go in and not embarrass himself. He didn't want anybody to see what he looked like because of his illness.
Walter Stone died on December 5th, 1997. His extraordinary career in law enforcement had spanned more than half a century.
If there were ever an all-star team of policemen worldwide, Colonel Stone would probably be the starting pitcher.
He recognized the fact that he was a leader.
Really a hero. The people really had a hero there.
He was the General Patton of law enforcement. A legend. You'll never see another one.
Rhode Island astronaut Woody Spring, next on NBC 10 Biographies.
A journey into space, the dream of a lifetime for a boy from Harmony, Rhode Island. Born in Connecticut in 1944, Sherwood Spring moved to the Ocean State when he was just 3 years old. Woody, the oldest of four, set an example for his brothers and sister.
He worked like the rest of us did, probably more than the rest of us did, because he was the oldest child and a lot of responsibility.
Handsome and popular at school, he had every opportunity to follow an easy path in life. Instead, he applied and was accepted at West Point. Following graduation, he served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam. It was an unpopular war and one that would claim the lives of close friends. But Spring served his country without complaint.
There was a sense of duty, and that's the West Point logo, honor, duty, country.
After earning a master's degree in aerospace engineering, Spring spent 3 years as a test pilot at Edwards Air Force Base.
He wrote a letter home one time. He just wrote what a great time he had doing loops and inland turns and different maneuvers in the air, having a great time doing it.
He married Debbie Cooper in 1974. Together, they began raising a family. In 1980, Lieutenant Colonel Spring received word that NASA had selected him for its shuttle program. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. Woody participated in pre-flight safety exercises with enthusiasm and characteristic good humor. Because his mission would require a spacewalk, astronaut Spring received special training in an underwater shuttle cargo bay designed by NASA to simulate a weightless environment.
Woody, how you read?
I got you loud and clear.
Okay, very good. Divers, let's take the crewman to the 576 bulkhead.
And slowly.
Before his flight, Woody spoke candidly about the potential for danger that all explorers must face.
I don't really consider that there's that much risk. Not if you compare it to what you could be doing. I think it's probably more dangerous to be driving on the highways than it is flying in space.
In 1985, on a warm Florida night beneath a full moon, Woody Spring rocketed into space.
You actually feel the vibrations reverberating through your chest cavity. And then there's this massive light, like a nuclear blast, and it goes up in the air. Tremendous. And then you think, here's my brother going up in this controlled explosion, going up whatever the miles per hour are. Pretty spectacular stuff.
As mission specialist, Rhode Island's first astronaut was responsible for launching 3 communication satellites. NASA was paid more than $42 million for providing this service, an important step in the agency's efforts to work with the private sector. It was a delicate and demanding operation, but the boy from Harmony made it all look easy. The unique environment of space was both a challenge and a thrill for astronaut Spring. But in quiet moments, there was time to reflect on the work that lay ahead. The highlight of Woody Spring's mission would be one of the most elaborate and ambitious experiments ever devised by NASA. During lengthy spacewalks, Spring and his co-worker would build complex structures while orbiting the Earth. The project was designed to test the techniques necessary for realizing one of the space agency's loftiest goals, constructing a space station.
It was a formidable task, definitely, and the fact that there are people like Woody are so dedicated to making sure that's going to work. It's not a spectacular time for them to go up and hot dog it. I mean, there's a mission. Like a mission, okay? And if you accomplish it successfully, it means an immense amount for the human space endeavor and all of us. And so I would say it was a very difficult task.
The world watched in wonder as astronaut Woody Spring lifted a 45-foot tower that weighed nearly 200 pounds and gently twirled it like a baton.
It was just incredible, and I think that was when the reality set in for me as to what construction in space was all about.
Time-lapse studies of these experiments make them look like harmless fun. But hundreds of miles above the Earth, circling the planet at more than 17,000 miles per hour, the threat of danger is very real.
If there's a projectile or some micrometeorite or a piece of an old satellite, it's dangerous. But these are calculated risks. You don't send people up there with a low likelihood, but on the other hand, it's dangerous.
Teamwork by the men and women who formed the elite ranks of the astronaut program will be vital to the future success of America's space mission. Individuals like Woody Spring represent the very best of that team spirit.
They all have different backgrounds, and they all have common experiences, etc. But they share a vision and a dedication that Woody certainly has, which is really what the right stuff is all about, and just simply, doing the right thing. He was superb.
Spring's flight, completed just months before the Challenger disaster, ranks as one of the most successful in the history of the space program. Today, Woody Spring is employed in the private sector. Much of his work is classified and vital to the security of the nation he has served so well. He can look back with pride on a space mission and a life that serves as a shining example to both young and old alike.
NBC 10 Biographies will return in a moment.
Thank you for being with us. I'm Doug White, and be sure to join us next time for another edition of NBC 10 Biographies.